Don't bother, I'm not singing. I'm talking. It was a terrible voyage. I was sick, of course. I sailed from Germany, and we picked up Mr. Grau and a lot of other singers at Southampton, singers from all over Europe. The whole of the opera company came on our ship. I was very lucky at this time because the directors of the steamship line knew me, so that I had the best cabin. But even so, I had to sleep in the upper berth, and Schumann, like all good German husbands, had the lower one, the head of the family. Germany still ruled, you see, even though I was on my way to the land of freedom. The minute Grau came on board, we had a talk. I loved him the minute I set eyes on him. He was so good to me, so gay. He always has something to joke about. Then while we were talking, suddenly he looked at me and took in my situation. He stopped short and cried, "Why? What is this? What is this I see? What has happened, Heink? You are expecting a baby? Oh, Heink, this is terrible. You sign a contract with me to make a big success in the greatest opera house in the world, and here you come like this. Wing, what shall we do? We are ruined. You cannot sing if you have a baby now." "Oh, nonsense," I said. "What do you know about it? You know nothing about babies. I have had them many a time. I shall sing. You shall see. I shall make a grand success for you. This baby is nothing." "But," he cried, "I never heard of such a thing. A great prima donna and a baby coming. You cannot make your debut. I hear you have already 6 children at home. Why didn't you tell me this before, Hank? Or logically, how could I tell you before I knew it?" I said, "I did tell you in Germany long ago that my children always came first." So we started to quarrel. We talked in German, of course, because I didn't know a word of English. We argued for a long time, and then poor Grau just gave it up. He had to. There was nothing else to be done then. Well, we arrived in New York. I was to sing in Chicago first. I felt very sick. I thought of my debut. I began to be scared too for the first time. It was a terrible ordeal to face, I tell you. Here it was the 1st of November, and the baby was coming in December. Then Schumann was sick again. I was desperate. I had all kinds of terrible thoughts. What if I should die? And Schumann, of no use, and 7 children to care for. I began to have again my old worries, and it was very bad for me. But already I liked the United States. From the first moment I was crazy for it, in spite of all my worrying. It was a new world for me. And now came the great ordeal, my first part, Ortrud in Lohengrin. My debut was in Chicago, November 7th, 1898, and the very night before, I went all to pieces, which was unusual for me. I was at a little German restaurant with Schumann, a few blocks from the hotel, and I said, "Schumann, I am so frightened, I cannot walk." He said, "What, Tini? You must walk. You must. Tomorrow is the great day. You must not give up now." We left the restaurant somehow, and I got to the hotel. When I came home, I felt like dying. And Schumann began to scold. "This is terrible," he said. "Here you are crying. You are miserable. If you feel like this, we will stop now. We will go back to Germany at once." "Oh," I said, "Paul, I didn't realize all it would mean." And then he scolded and stormed. And I got a little mad too, which I suppose was a good thing, for I stopped crying. The next night was the performance. I don't know how I dressed myself. All I know is that somehow, as always, the old curtain went up, and I stood there in front of the audience. If you remember, Ortrud in that part does not sit down. And when the curtain went up, I stood there in profile. So, with my arms folded. There I stood. And right away, the audience began to applaud. It gave me courage. Of course, it was because of my debut. For I was by that time known in the United States only by reputation. Such applause. I can hear it to my last day. I didn't move. Then I sang, I acted, and forgot myself. After the first few minutes, my voice rang out, just like it always did. And I knew all was well. We were called and called and called after that first act. The orchestra had to stop. It was a great night. It was my night, I tell you. And my colleagues, dear old Plancon was there, and the Dereskis. They stood in the wings, watching, because they knew in 4 weeks after, there would be a little baby born. They were all anxious and worried. But when it was over, that darling Plancon came, and he kissed me and hugged me, and they all told me how wonderful it was. I said, thank God, and there is no time for kissing. And I rushed to the dressing room to make the change for the last act. I felt a little shaky in the knees. But what did it matter? Everything was a success. The opera was saved. Mr. Grau could not scold now anymore about the new baby. I was a success. For 20 times that curtain rang up. Such generous American applause. When I finally got to my dressing room, I just broke down. I got hysterical for the first time. Then they all came rushing in. Newspaper reporters, critics, singers, everybody. And Mrs. Grau herself, and Mr. Grau, who was just crazy with excitement. Mrs. Grau came and undressed me, loosened everything up, because of course I had on very tight corsets and everything heavy. I will never forget what she said to me at that moment. Dear Heink, don't cry. Don't cry. It will make you sick. It is all over. You are a great, great success. And Grau, well, dear old Grau, he just came to me and said, Heinke, you are a wonder, a wonder. Baby or no baby, you are a wonder, Heinke. He began then to call me Heinke. That was his pet name for me. Of course, the next day, there were headlines in all the papers, and the new future seemed sure. It was the beginning of what I shall always think, the greatest part of my career. I sang twice in the opera in Chicago after that, and we stayed the whole month there. Then Grau decided that for the New York debut, we must wait until the baby was born. Take a rest now, Heinke, he said. You deserve it. And so it was that I took a little rest. I used to sit in the hotel in Chicago and look out on the lake. So homesick I was for my children. And one day, as I sat there crying for them, there came a knock at the door. I said, come in. The door opened, and in steps, who do you think? Mina, my old servant, Mina from Hamburg. Poor dear Mina. There she stood. I looked at her as though I was seeing a ghost. I couldn't believe my eye. I screamed, Mina, Mina, is it you? What has happened? Are my children dead? What has brought you here to America? No, no, Frau Heink, she said. Nothing has happened. Nothing, God be praised. You are well, and I see you again. I knew of the baby coming, and I thought you must have someone with you at this time from your old home. And she began to cry. But Mina, how did you think of coming here? I asked. How did you ever find me here? And how did they let you come away from Hamburg? Ah, she said, They didn't know. I didn't tell them. They wouldn't let me go. But there was plenty at home to take care of the children. Charlotte is a big girl, and she watches over little Marie. Then she told me how she came. Second class. And when she got off the boat, looked around for someone who spoke German. She didn't know a word of English, of course. So when she heard a big man on the dock speaking German, she ran to him and said, "Please, please, sir, where is my Schumann Heink?" And can you believe it? By another stroke of good fate, the man she spoke to was the porter at the Belvedere Hotel, where I stayed when I first landed in New York. Mina said he just stared at her and then said, "Yeah, of course, I know your Schumann Heink. She stayed at our hotel, but she is now in Chicago, and she has made a great success there, too." Then Mina said, "And why not? My Schumann Heink couldn't have anything but a big success." She was so proud of me, poor Mina. Well, the porter bought her ticket and put her on the train for Chicago. There was a beautiful looking woman on this train, a singer. And who do you think it was? My old friend Nordica and her accompanist. Mina said the porter spoke to Nordica, who told Mina not to worry, that she would take care of her and send her to me. And so it was that my old faithful Mina came to help me. Well, right after that, we went back to New York, to the Belvedere Hotel. And now comes the day that blessed darling baby, who made so much trouble for dear old Grau and the rest of us, was born. I didn't feel well that morning, and I said to Mina, "Now, we will take a walk." I was stubborn as a mule, of course. "We will go to Central Park." Well, a walk from 18th Street to Central Park is something. When we got to the park, Mina said, "Ach, gnädige Frau, you don't look well. We must hurry home quick." Nonsense. I said, "I am all right." But Mina wouldn't listen to me. So back to the hotel we went. Then it was that I had my first glimpse of an American doctor whom Schumann had called right away. It was a great comfort to me to see that he was not a wild Indian. You know, my colleagues in Hamburg had frightened me, saying there were no good doctors in America and that the population was mostly wild Indian. So here my blessed baby was born. And almost before I knew it, the doctor, with a nice smile on his face, was bending over me, saying, "Well, well, my congratulations, Frau Schumann Heink, to you and to little George Washington." I didn't know what he was saying. I didn't understand. What? I said. I didn't know what he meant. "Yes, it is a boy, your baby, a fine little American boy. And you cannot show your gratitude to America better than by calling him George Washington. Name him after the father of these great United States." A few days later came the German Consul General, and I told him about it. He said, "You cannot call this baby George Washington. That is against the German law." "You old fool," I said, "it is not against the American law. We are in America now. He is not registered, this baby, and he is to be named George Washington. That's what we'll call him. That's settled. And George Washington Schumann, he was christened. I couldn't have given him a better name, now could I?"
Höre mich denn, was ich dir sage. Seit von dir geschieden, zur Schlacht nicht mehr schickte uns Mut. Hier und ratlos ritten wir ängstlich umher. Wohlhalt, mutige Helden wie Wallfacher, einsam Frost ohne Ruhm und Kraft, durchstreift als Wanderer die Welt. Jüngst kehrt in der Hand hielt seines Schweres Splitter, die hatte ein Held ihm geschlagen. Mit stummem Pink, Walhals Edle, wieder zum Tor. Die Esche zu hellen. Seine Rabenbeide samt der auf Reise kehren die ein, wie du verkundet zurück. Dann seine Knie umwindend liegen wir Walküren blind. Bleibt den flehenden Blicken uns alle verzehrt, Sorgen und endlose Angst. An seine Brust pressen die Schweinen. Da brach sich sein Blick, gedachte Brünnhilde, tief seufzte schloss das Auge und im Traume raunt das Wort des tiefen reines Töchterns. Gebe den Ring sie wieder zurück, des Bluts